I'd like to respond to your 7-minute speech, which is primarily, I disagree like 99% of it. It's just not true. We've done nothing that's illegal. We've been in over 600 briefings to Congress. We've asked questions. We've answered questions repeatedly. We get hundreds of questions a day. We respond them as quickly as possible. And your characterization of the moves that we made
Mr. Secretary, I would
false.
just tell you, we are here because we need the information so that we can write our budget and on a bipartisan.
Well, you'll have the information you need to write a budget.
Okay, so will we get the details on the El Salvador arrangement? Yes or no?
Well, which Salvador arrangement? Are you
Your agreement that you've made with them about.
Well, what agreement? The president of El Salvador agreed to take in 250 gangbangers, and we sent them.
Funding details we have not gotten. We need to see what the costs are.
Well, we haven't funded that. We've provided them law enforcement assistance. I know you just claimed that we cut all this law enforcement assistance. We provided El Salvador and other countries law enforcement assistance. They have the right to spend that money any way they wish. But they did us a big favor. They took 250 dangerous, trained out. We didn't deport any U.S. residents. No U.S. residents were deported.
I'm not going to argue with you on that
Well,
point.
there's not an argument, but don't say we deported U.S. residents, because we didn't. I don't deport anybody.
I'm not asking.
But we didn't deport U.S. residents.
I'm asking you whether.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First, the channel where we cut through the noise, call out the lies, and hold the left accountable while defending our Constitution, our values, and our great nation. If you're new here, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a single update from the front lines of the fight for America. Every click, every share, every comment helps grow this movement, and we are grateful to have patriots like you standing shoulder to shoulder in defense of the truth. Today, we're going to break down one of the most hostile, dishonest, and frankly embarrassing displays we've seen in the Senate in quite some time. Senator Patty Murray launched into a 7-minute tantrum, yes, a tantrum, against Secretary Marco Rubio during a hearing. She threw around accusation after accusation like she was auditioning for a CNN segment, not doing the job of an elected official. And as usual, it had all the flair of righteous indignation but none of the facts.
Secretary Rubio, I am deeply concerned that you have overseen a systemic campaign to dismantle USAID, impound billions of dollars that this committee actually provided, and unilaterally remake the Department of State without the slightest bit of concern that you lack the authority to do that without Congress. It has created chaos, it's caused preventable deaths across the globe, and it has undermined American leadership. As Ranking Member Schatz noted, what you have done is outright illegal, a complete violation of bipartisan appropriation laws, the Impoundment Control Act, and the Anti-Deficiency Act. Within hours of taking office, President Trump halted all foreign aid in flagrant defiance of the law. Now, under your watch, Secretary Rubio, that freeze was implemented with chaos and cruelty. And then you illegally shuttered USAID, placing everyone on leave, halting life-saving work, literally locking people out of the building and out of their devices, even in dangerous corners of our world. You paid people not to work, abandoned our partners across the globe, and chaotically recalled global staff, putting more than 1,600 Americans who served our country abroad in limbo. And when you shut down the USAID payment system, you even refused to pay for services provided before the illegal freeze. You fought all the way to the Supreme Court, against paying for services U.S. businesses already rendered with funding that Congress already provided. And I know you know, Mr. Secretary, but you lost. And I assume you need the reminder because to this day, you have not made all the payments that are required by our nation's highest court, and as a result, American companies continue to lay off American workers. And by the way, you do continue to lose in court, including just yesterday over your move to illegally replace the U.S. Institute of Peace Leadership, and in recent cases over international broadcasting. Now, eventually, Mr. Secretary, you sent Congress notice of your intent to collapse the USAID into state. Only you didn't consult with this committee. That's required by law. It came without justification, also required by law, and it came long after USAID was reduced to rubble. So sadly, disregard for our laws and values, to me, has sort of become a pattern of your tenor, revoking visas when someone writes an op-ed you don't like, or reaching a secret deal to use taxpayer dollars to jail U.S. residents in a notorious foreign prison, no due process, or pointlessly leaving food assistance to rot in storage. Actually, in Dubai, we now have 500 tons of high-energy biscuits that expire in July. They're bought, they're shipped, they're stored, all at taxpayer expense. But you've condemned them to waste, and that is one example of many. Now, another pattern that I'm deeply worried about is transparency. We have pressed you for information. Our staffs have sent you countless emails and briefing requests so we can do our job here. There are hundreds of unanswered requests and no effort to address them. And Mr. Secretary, that's got to change. Even your plan to reorganize the State Department came with no information on the 270 offices you are moving to eliminate, the proposed layoffs, or how USAID would be merged into state. I won't ask you whether impounding billions of dollars is legal. It is not. I won't ask you whether it's efficient to pay people not to work or fire them without determining staffing needs. But, and I won't ask you if cutting 91% of our counter-narcotic and law enforcement programs make us safer, abruptly abandoning agreements with allies makes us stronger, or ceding our global leadership to China makes us more prosperous. Of course not. We know that. We have worked together for years in a bipartisan way to advance U.S. interests and fund those programs. So with respect to my colleagues, how long are we going to sit here and watch this silently? Are we going to roll over as Trump tramples our laws and undermines our U.S. leadership, burns down what we have spent decades building, and let millions of people across our globe suffer and die? Or are we going to stand up, push back, assert our constitutional power of the purse? And to my colleagues on both sides, this is the moment to decide whether this committee continues to be a powerful bipartisan force, a force that I think we've all been proud of for a very long time, a force that is focused on safety and economic strength and national security, focused on leading the world in research and development and countering China and others with our soft power and our military power. Every single member of this committee knows what we are risking by letting this administration tear down so much. On USAID and other programs, we can always talk about how we can make things work better and other reforms. I don't think any of us are opposed to any of those considerations. We have been doing that in a bipartisan way for a long time. But that's not actually what Trump's fiscal year 2026 budget proposes. Mr. Secretary, I know you would like to give a 5-minute speech back to me, but I only have a few seconds left, and I do need some information from you. As I said, we have asked and have not gotten. Can you tell me, will you share the text and details with my staff of your agreement with El Salvador and any other similar arrangements, including the funding details that we need to have?
Well, first, I'd like to respond to your 7-minute speech, which is primarily, I disagree like 99% of it. It's just not true. We've done nothing that's illegal. We've been in over 600 briefings to Congress. We've asked questions. We've answered questions repeatedly. We get hundreds of questions a day. We respond them as quickly as possible. And your characterization of the moves that we made
Mr. Secretary, I would
false.
just tell you, we are here because we need the information so that we can write our budget and on a bipartisan.
Well, you'll have the information you need to write a budget.
Okay, so will we get the details on the El Salvador arrangement? Yes or no?
Well, which Salvador arrangement?
Your agreement that you've made with them about.
What agreement? The president of El Salvador agreed to take in 250 gangbangers, and we sent them.
Funding details we have not gotten. We need to see what the costs are. In that.
Well, we haven't funded that. We've provided them law enforcement assistance. I know you just claimed that we cut all this law enforcement assistance. We provided El Salvador and other countries law enforcement assistance. They have the right to spend that money any way they wish. But they did us a big favor. They took 250 dangerous, trained out. We didn't deport any U.S. residents. No U.S. residents were reported.
I'm not going to argue with you on that point.
Well, it's not an argument, but don't say we deported U.S. residents, because we didn't. I don't deport anybody.
I'm not asking.
But we didn't deport U.S. residents.
I'm asking you whether we can see the details of the arrangements, including the funding details.
I'm giving you the details. The arrangements are we provide law enforcement funding to El Salvador, among other countries. How they choose to spend that money internally is up to them.
No.
But I can tell you.
Can you give me the details on the 200-plus offices you're proposing to
Sure, we've
eliminate?
provided that.
We need that. Can I get your commitment to give us those?
It's part of our reorg.
How about the details and justifications of your proposed rescissions from programs you claim are out of alignment with administration priorities. Are we going to get the details of that, funding priorities?
On rescissions and impoundment and things of this nature, that's obviously an OMB function, and I would talk to them about that in regard to what's going to go on with that money. I can tell you the contracts we canceled, and I can list to you the contracts we canceled and the rationale why, because I went through them
Can you get
myself.
those to us like today? So
The contracts?
Yes, and the funding arrangements that you've made. That's what I'm asking for.
Funding arrangements with who?
For any of the rescissions, for any of the funding, for any of the multiple congressional directives that you have given out so that we as an appropriations committee can make our funding decisions.
Sure, you're going to have all that information
you.
when you
I
put together a
appreciate that.
budget.
Thank you. I enjoyed that.
Let's start with the basics. Senator Murray accused Rubio of doing something outright illegal by supposedly impounding billions of dollars in foreign aid and dismantling USAID without congressional approval. She called it a violation of multiple federal laws, the Impoundment Control Act, the Anti-Deficiency Act, and so on. Now, folks, this is the kind of dramatic language they use when they want to scare the public and confuse the media. But here's the kicker. None of it holds up under scrutiny. Rubio responded immediately. He didn't dodge. He didn't stall. He said flat out, "We've done nothing that's illegal." He explained that his office has conducted over 600 briefings with Congress. 600. That's not the behavior of someone hiding something. That's not what stonewalling looks like. That's someone doing the hard work of reforming a bloated bureaucracy that Democrats have used as a piggy bank for decades. Now Murray went on this emotional roller coaster claiming that Rubio's actions cause chaos, preventable deaths, and global instability. Let's stop right there. That's pure political theater. The truth is, President Trump and his administration, including leaders like Marco Rubio, saw that foreign aid was being abused, mismanaged, and sent to regimes that actively undermine American interests. So they pulled back. They restructured. They demanded accountability. And that's what the Democrats are truly upset about. And of course, in typical liberal fashion, Murray brought up food. Yes, actual food. She complained about 500 tons of high-energy biscuits that are apparently sitting in storage in Dubai. And somehow that's Rubio's fault? Let's put this in perspective. While Democrats whine about biscuits, fentanyl is pouring across our southern border, veterans can't get proper care, and our economy is struggling under Bidenomics. But Patty Murray is mad about snack packs overseas? Give me a break. Now here's where it really gets dangerous. Murray accused Rubio of secretly negotiating a deal with El Salvador that, she implied, resulted in American residents being detained in foreign prisons. That's not just a lie, it's slander. Rubio flatly denied that any U.S. residents were deported. He said El Salvador agreed to take back 250 dangerous gang members, many of whom Democrats refused to acknowledge were a threat in the first place. That's what leadership looks like, protecting Americans from transnational crime and making foreign governments pull their weight. Murray, of course, ignored all that. She kept pressing Rubio for funding details, reorganization plans, contract cancellations, and more. And you know what? He said yes. He said he would provide the documents. He didn't run from transparency, he welcomed it. But that's not what the Democrats want. They don't want answers. They want headlines. They want sound bites. They want another opportunity to smear anyone associated with Trump, especially someone like Marco Rubio, who's actually making changes that threaten their grip on the system. Let's talk about what this is really about. This is not about foreign aid. It's not even about USAID. This is about control. The Democrats want to maintain their stranglehold on international programs where billions of dollars flow with little oversight. They want to keep funding so-called humanitarian projects that often end up supporting anti-American regimes and corrupt NGOs. And when someone like Rubio comes in and says, "Hold on a second, where is this money going?" they call him dangerous, lawless, even criminal. But the truth is clear. Rubio is doing what every public servant should be doing, demanding efficiency, accountability, and results. He's asking for impact, not intentions. That's what scares the left. You see, when Republicans cut waste, Democrats lose leverage. When Republicans say America comes first, the globalist left loses power. When leaders like Rubio challenge the status quo, the swamp starts to panic. That's why Senator Murray was so desperate in that hearing. She's not worried about foreign policy. She's worried about losing influence. Her party is watching their empire of taxpayer-funded pet projects crumble under the weight of common sense and conservative oversight. That's why she ranted. That's why she screamed. That's why she accused. And yet, despite all the shouting, despite all the drama, what did Rubio do? He stood tall. He responded calmly. He defended the decisions made under his watch with facts, not emotion. And he committed again to providing the transparency that Democrats pretend to want but fear will reveal just how much money has been misused under their leadership. So here's what I want to say to every America First patriot watching this. We are in a battle for control, not just of our government, but of the narrative. The left wants to paint every attempt at reform as extremism. They want to scare the public into thinking that conservative governance is chaos, when in fact it is clarity. They want you to believe that putting America first is somehow controversial. But we know better. We believe that government should serve its people, not foreign interests, not global elites, not unelected bureaucrats. We believe that every tax dollar spent should be accounted for. We believe that leadership means taking tough actions, even when it's unpopular in Washington. So thank you, Senator Rubio, for standing your ground. And to every patriot out there, this is your reminder that we're not just fighting back. We're winning. Slowly, steadily, and unapologetically. This is America First. If you're tired of the lies, tired of the waste, and tired of the political theater, then you're in the right place. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends and family. Because the more we speak up, the more we expose. The more we expose, the more we change. Until next time, keep your head high, your faith strong, and your voice loud. America first, always.